Today we have a former car dealer from locally here who shares some of his inside secrets on how you can dodge some of the financial pitfalls, avoid the emotion, pain, and actually enjoy your car buying experience. I want to welcome Mark Ragsdale here to the Cool Talk Show. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for being had. You got a new book that's coming out?
Yes, sir.
Car Wreck.
Yes, sir.
We've read excerpts of it, and it's a very interesting book. Some of the reasons why you wrote the book. Who did you write it for? Did you write it for car dealers? Did you write it for consumers? Is there a market, niche market, or is it for everybody?
Well, I wrote it for consumers, and that was really a distributor decision, because they said, look, what do you want us to do with this thing? Because this thing had taken 3 rights. Particularly after GM and Chrysler bankruptcies, it needed to be rewritten. But it's written for the consumer, and it's an expose on the entire industry. A lot of these books that you mentioned, written by the guy that bought the Hyundai, or a finance manager, or some other player in the business, dealers are easy targets, and typically that's right where they go. And what troubled me was that you can negotiate like you're at a Moroccan bazaar. I mean, you can negotiate like a true professional, buy the vehicle close to dealer cost, and still get hammered by $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 worth of depreciation, interest penalties, and people just don't understand how that works. They just know that when they go to the dealership, they never get enough for their trade. The salespeople use all kinds of language they hate, and they don't understand that. Oftentimes they're in the dealership for 2.5, 3 hours. For some reason they're in the wrong car, and now finance can't get them approved on a loan. And then the latest stuff with all the taxes being taken by the government and applied to the car business. And in fact, what the car business has done is shrink the number of dealerships with the federal taxpayer money, which is, of course, you know, is not a good situation for a buyer. You want to have a lot of choices. You want to have a lot of price competition, right?
Yeah, competition is good.
Well, the government just shut down 2,150 car dealerships with about $63 billion worth of taxpayer money. And, you know, we explain all of that in the book, and I think it's a real education for people.
And you see some dealerships now are really trying to simplify the process, because it isn't rocket science. You're going in to buy a car, and yes, it's a big purchase, but it still isn't rocket science. Does a purchase really need to take 3 hours, or can a dealer get it down to an hour?
It really depends on the market, how short you can make the process. The primary driver of being there a long time and being asked all those questions that everybody hates, how much do you want to pay a month, how much do you have down, how much do you owe? People don't like that. They feel like the dealer's just trying to take advantage of them. And in some cases, I'm sure they're right. And I think that's where those questions started. But right now, according to Edmunds, at least in 2009, the average consumer owed $4,700 more on their vehicle than what it was worth. So when you bring that situation into a car dealership, along with the balance of your personal credit issues and income issues that you may or may not have, and then you're trying to get qualified for a loan, there's an awful lot of wrangling that goes on to put that down on paper so the bank will approve the customer.
You hear a lot of the radio and TV commercials now. You know, every credit application will be accepted. When we make a deal, we'll pay off your trade no matter what you owe on it. And part of the reasoning behind that, I think, is because a lot of people are, if you go with the slang term or the car dealer's term or whoever's term it is, they're upside down. They owe more on their car than what the car is worth.
And they know that, because if they've gone to a car dealership and been insulted, as customers so often are, and even, you know, when we were running, we'd have customers just be completely insulted with the appraisal on the trade. And why? Because they make an assumption that the car is worth what they owe on it, and that if they don't get what they owe on the car, then they're taking a loss. When you extend out the term of finance on those vehicles, and they are depreciating at the same time, and the bank gets involved with the interest calculations, and the automaker's involved to the degree that the car, or the rapidity that the car depreciates, you know, the consumer gets rear-ended run over and crushed. That's the subtitle of the book. So I've got strategies in there. And I tell you what, it's not the car dealer's fault. Look, you know, if they have to find a way to get you out of your negative equity and get you into something that you want or will accept, or something nicer than you have, they have to use any means that they need to with the banks and rebates and otherwise to make that happen. And that's what they do. I explain how they do it, though, and how a consumer can protect themselves. And what's interesting is there were two big phenomenons that drive depreciation. The rental-car business drives depreciation massively because they buy large blocks of cars. They put them in their outlets. When they get up to 8, 10, 12,000 miles, often the factory buys them back from them now as used cars, but they're still in current model year cars, but they're used cars. And they go to the auctions with these cars and literally flood the market. So if you're driving a brand new one that you negotiated a great deal on and got a rebate, and then they're selling at auction for half, okay, 8, 9 months later, you're stuck. You got stuck.
Buying or leasing?
Leasing. You know, I think used cars are a great idea. Some new cars, you can buy them because they don't go out to fleet. A lot of them don't go out to fleet, meaning the rental companies aren't buying 20,000 of them and returning them at half price after you paid 2,000 less than sticker. So you're protected buying some new cars that don't go into the rental companies. And right now it's pretty good because the travel is down, so those cars are not being purchased and returned by the rental companies. Everything else, look, leasing, and I explain, I have a chapter on it. It's about 10 pages, and it's totally in layman's language. You can pick a jumping off point where somebody else is responsible for what that car is worth.
Right. Again, the name of the book is Car Wreck. It's available on markragsdale.com.
markragsdale.com.
You can pre-order it, and also on Amazon.com.
It's on Amazon.com, and at the end of January, you will begin seeing it in Barnes & Noble and Borders. I got a great publisher, Langdon Street Press, and a great distributor, Itasca. They're great people. And I just I hope people pick up that book and take a look.
Thanks, Mark, for joining me. I appreciate it.